Good morning, everybody. My name is Bobbie Richardson. Decided to come on live today to talk about something. I just saw a post, and it was about Uluru in Australia and what's happening down in Melbourne and everything. So I wanted to share with you guys, because this post was saying that there was I don't even know if I can say these words on YouTube and that without them taking me off, but whatever, let's just go for this. They were saying that the Draconians were taking over Uluru and all that sort of stuff. I just wanted to come on board, tell you my story, explain to you where I'm coming from, and give you a different insight into the going-ons, instead of just thinking that, these messages are going out that to the whole world that Australia is taken over by Draconians. Okay, so I'll tell you the background first so that you can get a bit of an understanding why I'm coming forward. I've always been able to see into other vibrations, and I've had many messages throughout my whole entire life. My mother had the same gift. She didn't like it, so she put a stop to it. Now, back in 2011, I was getting a lot of information my way, and I had a dream about going on a bus to Uluru. I had already had a feeling that I was meant to go somewhere. I didn't know where I was meant to go, and I'd already booked a ticket too to see David Icke when he was coming down in 2012. Sorry, 2000. Was it 2000? No, it was 2011. Sorry, yep, 2011 in September. So. Or was it August? Sorry, it's so long ago. I think it was 22nd of August, somewhere around there. Anyway, you can look it up. He did have a tour that went around Australia at that stage, and I'd booked to see him in Gold Coast. Now, had the dream, saw myself on a bus going to Uluru. I hadn't even thought about going to Uluru before this dream at all. Woke up the very next morning, and here was David Icke saying, does anyone want to come with me on a bus tour to Uluru? There's going to be something like 20 seats on this bus. I'm just going to pick names out of the hat. And everybody started throwing their name in the hat to go with him to Uluru. Now, because I'd just woken up from this dream, and I'd never done anything like this before, never gone on any sort of tours before, and I had been just gifted a whole heap of money as well, decided to put my name in the hat to go to Uluru. Had two daughters at the time that were very young, didn't know who was going to take care of them, because their dad was a bit so-so with when he was going to have them, but he the very next day asked to have them those specific days, so that relieved that. And I'm like, everything's kind of lining up. I'm supposed to go to this. Apparently, a week later, my name was picked out of the hat first. I talked to the lady that actually picked the names out of the hat on the bus, and she said my name was picked out first. So I got this phone call to say that I'll be going to Uluru with David Icke. Packed up my bags. I was actually moving the very day before I was meant to go on the plane to a place called Mullaney. So I was in a move as well. Also had a dream, an ascension dream, where I went on the back of a white horse, and I was concerned about, there was some sort of planetary alignment that was happening with what I perceived as wasn't a comet. It was kind of, I saw it as a spacecraft that was coming to Earth at that time, and they said, don't worry about, there was all this mass media going on about that it was going to cause some big disaster, and they said in this dream, don't worry about that, it's just a big advertisement, a big fraud. So that relieved me of that pressure. Ended up getting on the plane, got to the other end at Alice Springs. So flew over Pine Gap, saw the big, there's like big white circle balls and stuff, buildings, really strange buildings right in the centre of Australia, which is called Pine Gap. Didn't know much about Pine Gap at all, really wasn't into any sort of conspiracy things or stuff like that. It was just following my own guidance for my own spiritual stuff and all that sort of stuff. Got off the plane, they started chatting to everybody. Then I noticed people were leaving the airport to jump on some, other transport. So I'm following the small group, and because I saw David Icke leave and just started following. Got to near their car, and they turned around and saw me coming behind them and said, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be going to the bus." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" I had no idea that I was supposed to follow some other big group. So David said, "Just come inside, come in the car with me." So I was with David in the car. He's like, "It's meant to be anyway." So ended up having a chat to him. When I got to Alice Springs, we were in a backpackers lodge. It was really funny what happened there, because there was all these big lizards that were on the bench, and my guides must have kind of got to me, because I don't normally pick up big lizards. Honestly, I'd be more afraid of them normally, but for some weird reason I turned into Steve Irwin, grabbed this big lizard and poked it in his face and said, "Isn't it beautiful?" And David's like, And I'm like, "Oh, really? It's gorgeous." And I think they really wanted me to just let David know, it's not all lizards aren't bad. It's not like that. They're not all the negative ones. Anyway, got to show my new children's book that I just published as well, which is cool. I'm kind of deterring from the story a little bit, sorry. Ended up, when I was in this backpackers lodge, I had not such a good feeling around that area. Now, that area was pretty close to Pine Gap, and I know that David actually went with a group to Pine Gap to see if they could get in, but they couldn't get in. It was completely boarded up with big signs saying you'll be shot if you go past here, blah, blah, blah. But when I went to sleep, I knew I had this feeling this was not a good area. There's something not so good. And I woke up to this, it was like a mass of dark, kind of charcoaly cube mass that oozed out of the wall. And I knew inside it were souls being trapped. And my heart just, the compassion just poured out for these like heaps and heaps of souls trapped in these kind of cube-like boxes or something. And I remember saying to them, "Hang in there, you are going to be freed. I promise you will be freed. So just hang in there." So that was my experience of being around the area of Pine Gap. Definitely that area was taken over by some controlled kind of whatever. Then I jumped in the bus, and we ended up going to Uluru. We stayed in a camping place in some beautiful cabins, kind of tent cabins there. And the weird thing was I was sitting right next to a guy called Max Ingham. He was holding a talking stick, and he had to leave the day earlier to go take this talking stick to a group of people that were doing a ceremony the day before we were coming. One of the ladies in that ceremony I met a month later in Malani, the place that I just moved to, which was really weird. So when we got to, so I'm on the bus. I'm just remembering everything that had happened. So when I was on the bus, hi Priscilla, hi Hearts Live. I'm not doing readings today. I'm talking about my trip to Uluru with David Icke. So when I was on the bus going towards Uluru, that's right, the night before we went, after the ceremony that these people did with the talking stick, that Max Ingham gave them the talking stick, there was a massive lightning storm that struck Uluru, and we saw it happening. So it was like it was being cleansed of water, cleansed of energy. 15 minutes into seeing Uluru, actually approaching the actual mountain, I am on the bus and I just start weeping. I just started crying. I couldn't help myself. It was the most weirdest, randomest, embarrassingest thing. So I'm like bawling my eyes out. Everyone's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay. I don't know what's happening. So I just hung back, and soon as I put my hand on the mountain, I stopped crying. It was like the emotions just stopped. It was very, very emotional for me to connect to the mountain, and probably being empathic or feeling into, there was kind of a coming home feeling as well. It was like a Palladian feeling, and being that I'd already had contact with Palladian beings before, where they put their forehead on my forehead and chanted this stuff, I had this vibration coming up that was just making me extremely emotional. So I'm walking around the mountain with this group of people, and I felt that there was some sort of porthole kind of magnetizy things, places around the mountain where you could connect. And David, at the same time as I'm thinking that, said the same thing. And then the bus driver took him aside and started to talk to him about that. So I'd already had a talk to the bus driver, who was really into the Indigenous people. I didn't want to do anything against the Indigenous people. I was extremely respectful, didn't climb any mountains, didn't do anything wrong in their eyes, because I really didn't want to disrupt their sacredness of who they were with that mountain and the other mountains that we visited before too. I didn't even enter the man's mountain place either. Wanted to be very respectful of any Indigenous people. So when we were there, David started speaking about these portholes. He got taken aside by the Aboriginal, or the person that was bus driver that was in with the Aboriginal tribe. He wasn't actually Aboriginal, but he was really connected to those Aboriginal tribes. That was part of his family. So I'm walking around the mountain. Now, I'd had a piece of paper with me, which was a name that a Cherokee elder previously had given me in many years before, where she pulled me out of a crowd and was talking to me. She said that she was going to help me, and I worked with her for years and years. She talked to me telepathically and all sorts of stuff and showed me potentials of humanity. Anyway, I had her name. What she did was she'd prick your finger, and then she would go into this intense meditation. She would find your soul lineage, and she would tell you what that was. Now, my story was that there was a big shift in the earth, and I was one to carry specific codes, to come back with those codes, and my name given to me was Alana Wananahi. Alana meant turtle in Cherokee, and Nanahi was the fairy clan, but she said I was a creator of that fairy tribe. So I'm walking around the mountain with this piece of paper, and I see the bus driver, and I thought I'm going to talk to him about the portholes that I felt were around Uluru. But I didn't even get to open my mouth. As soon as I went to approach him, he turned around and said, I saw a turtle in Uluru. Now, I'd just spoken to Uluru and said, look, if you want me to do anything, I'm here. My name's Alana Ananahi. If I'm here for a reason, I'm here to do something, then do it, because otherwise I'm going home, so be it. Maybe I need to do nothing. Maybe it's just me being here. It doesn't matter. So I walk up to him. He says that there's a turtle in the mountain. He grabs my hand and he reefs me into the mountain. Now, we weren't supposed to go into the mountain. We're not allowed to do that. But because he was, in my eyes, the Aboriginal, in with the Aboriginals, I decided he knows what he's doing. I can follow this man. I probably wouldn't have followed anybody else. So we went into the mountain and we come to this, like a crevice where it was like two huge cliffs that together where you could kind of squeeze yourself into. So this is back in 2011 when this all happened. We got to slide ourselves in. So there was him, a male, and me, a female, and he looked to the side and says, "Can you see the turtle in the rock?" I did see kind of a turtle-shaped rock, but I don't think I saw what he saw. I was trying to make it out to what he saw, something more like a turtle than I did. I just trying to be as honest as I possibly can with the story. But then I said to him, "Oh, wow, we're here now. They're telling me to put my hands on the rock," and they gave me the vision of what happened previous years where these Palladians put their forehead on my forehead and started chanting. And I said to him, "I think we're supposed to do what they're telling me to do, put our foreheads on the rock and start chanting." I didn't even know what I was going to chant. Honestly, I didn't chant normally, but I'm just making some noises because he started first. And the weirdest things started happening. So it was like the rock was pulsating like Mother Earth or Gaia was pulsating, really like a heartbeat going through me, like a woo, like this. And then my hands started to shake. Never had any experience like this with a rock before in my life. And then all of this information that the Palladians and other beings have given me of our potential and where humanity can go for our potential, all of these beautiful scenarios, the feelings and everything were starting to rush through me. And I started remembering all of these dreams that they had shown me of all these potentials for humanity, which is probably another story I can tell you about. So all of these dreams were coming through me into the mountain. And then after that happened, I'm like, "Oh, we're going to go because we're going to be late. We're going to catch a plane and we've got other responsibilities. And here's the bus driver next to me." So I turned to see the bus driver and he's like reaching his hand out through these two cliffs like this into just the space in between the two cliffs. And he looks at me and his pupils of his eyes were totally dilated, like he was almost on drugs, like high. And he's just going, "Oh my God, none of it's real. None of it's real." And I'm like, whoa, he's lost himself a bit here. So I pull him out. We sit down for a minute. I said, "We've got to get back." Now, the path that we were on before, when I just met him, as soon as I put my footstep on that path, I realized it wasn't the bus driver. It was another guy that was on the bus, and he owned some resort somewhere, a health center or something in Australia. I didn't know him from a bar of soap, but it was like this veil had lifted from being blinded to the fact that it wasn't the bus driver, because I would not have followed that other guy. But maybe it was because they wanted me to be with that person, not the bus driver, but I wouldn't have followed him. So it was done now. The bus driver was actually, who was in sync with the Aboriginals, is actually back at the, excuse my bruise, I've had acupuncture. He was back at the bus going, "Oh my God, they've gone in the mountain." And I'm like, well, it's happened now. Can't do much about it. We did jump on the bus and we got back. So yeah, it did end up sitting with David Icke for a while. He sat down, he came up to me and said, when you do public speaking, just speak your truth. So that was a really nice thing for him to say. So I think he kind of foresighted that I was going to be a public speaker in the end. We ended up coming back. Yeah, now there's a story that's going around, and it was a Telegram story from some galactic thing. It doesn't really matter. About that Uluru was taken over by draconians and stuff like that. Okay, this is what I know. So I'm going to speak my truth of what I know that's happening in Australia at the moment. 21st of December last year, huge thing happened. Now, this huge thing that happened was Uluru raised a vibration. She woke up. Gaia woke up. Now, Australia, how I see it, is the imagination of Gaia herself, the dreamings of the Aboriginals that are here. And I'm hoping that I'm not taking anything, I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody in the Aboriginal community. I'm only telling from my point of view, okay? So please don't come down on me. It's just my story. You can take of it what you like. So what I've been told, or what I've been shown, or what I felt into is that Australia is where a guy kind of holds her imagination, where new things are birthed for new frequencies to come from. And that's why I was sent there to give a gift of what Pleiadians had given me through these dreams of the potential of humanity. So being that on the 21st of December last year, I went into this weird trance where Gaia woke up in a higher vibrational aspect of herself, and imagining a realization of something, of humanity and what they hold for her, and this collaboration of meeting, of accepting of humanity being part of her. And with that, there was like this funnel of light that came from Uluru, and it shot through me. Now, I'd already been taught years previously, how to completely blank my mind. I thought of nothing while this was happening. And the light shot through me back to my hometown in Christchurch area in New Zealand. And then from there, this information went out. Now, so Uluru to me is a very sacred place, and it is where Gaia is waking up. The other aspect, the draconians that have been holding on to the power at the moment, trying to keep their power going, they already know that they're at a losing course. They're just trying to make trouble because they think that they can shift timelines, but there are certain timelines that they cannot shift. And I've already been shown that this was meant to happen, to squeeze humanity into remembering their connection to Gaia, to their souls, so that they can wake up. The more uncomfortable they feel, the more likely they're going to be squeezed into either waking up or going further into their uncomfortableness. It's still their choice. Everyone has choice of where they want to go. So they have planted themselves in Melbourne because they now know that Australia is the imaginational hub. If they can get humanity to be imagining the worst of a scenario, they feel that they can keep a stronghold on humanity for even longer. So they've now got their bases, and they already had bases underneath Melbourne. I know that they've got things happening with children, all sorts of not so nice things happening down there. So they're keeping that happening down there so that they can try to keep the stronghold happening on our imagination. All we have to do, it's so simple, all we have to do is start imagining what we want. Stop with the fear game. Just go into your houses if you're in, I would suggest this. Go into your houses if you're in Melbourne. Use the lockdown to really seek counsel within yourself. Connect to who you are passionately and what kind of person are you? What do you really want to be? Where do you want to go? Use it as the growth of your imagination to discover what your wildest dreams are for living peacefully on earth again. The more and the more of us that do that, the more this story just starts cracking and falling apart. The illusion starts coming out as the deception, and it all start falling down. So this is what I really needed to come online now and just really explain this to everybody, that it's important to not do the fear game in Australia. You're fueling them. They're still not going to win because they're part of the whole, they're part of oneness, and oneness is already decided. Source energy, God within, whatever you want to call it, is prime creator, already decided that humanity has the option to go with Gaia into these higher frequencies. And I'm telling you now, where we're going is absolutely beautiful, absolutely amazing. So they're telling me now to tell you one of these dreams that I'd had of our potential, so that you've got some sort of link to go to. In this dream, I woke up and the first thing I noticed was my mind. There was no mind. My mind was still. I was completely in the moment. It was like being kind of on a high, or, just after you have intercourse and you come, excuse me, that feeling of like just complete peace. If you haven't been high before or anything like that, just this real, but just constant, and a very, it's the only way I can describe it. So just this perfect peaceful feeling within my mind of not grasping onto, or no monkey mind really. So that was one of the biggest clues I knew that where we're going towards, what we're going towards, is that no monkey mind, that having faith in the next move of where we're going, because we know that we're connected to everything, and everything has our backs, like our reality has our back of wanting the best for us to evolve and become more of. There's like complete acceptance is another way that I could say it, acceptance of everything. So then I had a message. I was in a home that was really high up in a mountain. You could only get there by teleportation. Outside was the colors of the plant life were a lot more vibrant, because we had clarity within our minds. We had clarity of what we saw outside. So the reflection of what we saw was the truth of what was really happening, what was really there as in the nature of Earth. There was no blockages within us. So there was no blockages of our mind. And so everything was a lot more brighter. I had a message that someone was coming to my place. So there was telepathy it just happens. It's kind of like, someone's coming, and knowing that someone's coming. I'm free to come. It was kind of like a communication. I'm free for years to come. And then they teleported outside my door, and then we could walk. Now, this is huge potential here. This is like bringing in very high vibration, and I'm not saying this is where we can get to, where humanity can get to, but there's a lot more of things to go in between that, getting to that place. First of all, it's the inner work that we do to it with ourselves. So they arrived, and I said hi, and then we walked out onto the veranda, and I actually painted this straight after the dream because it just stuck with me. So the feelings were absolutely incredible. And we walked out to the veranda. I manifested a cup of tea, and it felt real. Everything felt real, but you could kind of instantly manifest things. There was adventures to be had. There was everything was connected. You could feel into a blade of grass and talk to the mountains. There was a whole other aspect of ourselves that we're missing out on. Now, that's not precisely where we're going to, because I don't know where we're going to. What we're doing now is we're bringing logic in, and everything that we've learned logically with the scientist stuff, everything that we can do, bring it in materially onto Earth, that with the high vibrational ability of being clear-minded and being able to do what we, be free sovereign beings within our own reality of whatever we want. It's like a combination of those two that's coming. So huge story. I know this was a huge story. I have many, many, many huge stories like this. I actually have recorded my life story at the beginning of this year. It is on my YouTube. I kind of hid it a bit because there's a lot to it, and I could imagine people really pulling it to pieces. That I feel way less fear now about everything. I know I'm protected, so I don't have that fear anymore, and I wanted to at least share some of these stories with you guys so that you could realize the importance, number one, of Australia and our imagination, where it can take us, that it can shift stories, that we have way more power than what we've been taught. It's very exciting stuff. So yeah, I just really wanted to share that with you guys. Love yous all. I'll speak more on other topics later on. Have a great, great day. Bye.